1. A few years ago, I was working at a gym in my city. I had recently graduated from university and was working a part-time job in my field and needed another job to supplement my hours. The fall before starting to work there, I began personal training with a coach at the gym and loved it. The gym had a warm and friendly community feel, which was perfect for me. I loved working at the gym. I worked the front desk and was mainly in charge of answering the phone, greeting people, and bringing clients on gym tours. Often there would be long periods of time where I wouldn't be too busy and I could chat with members at the gym. I loved it. There are so many cool people that go to the gym, but also I came to learn so many weird people, which ultimately led to me quitting the job. When I started working there, I was a red-headed, fit 22-year-old, fair-skinned, friendly, outgoing girl. Almost as soon as I began working there, I started to experience many odd and awkward advances from people working out at the gym. I had one guy come up to me and say,
"I just want to tell you that you are the most beautiful person I've ever seen."
Many people asked for my number or my Instagram, and luckily for me at the time, I didn't have either to give. And I was also regularly asked on dates. I was single at the time, but that was by choice. I just didn't want to be dating, so I always gently declined. Unfortunately, there were numerous occasions where situations with male members escalated, and my boss did not react as sympathetic as I thought she would. I found out later that every time I reported an incident, she would make remarks to people that I should appreciate the affection and just go on the dates. This post is about one of these creepy moments with a client. It's important to know that the front desk was right at the front of the gym, so every client would pass me on their way in and out. Part of my job was to greet them and say goodbye to them. The front desk was near the main water fountain, the change rooms, and it was open and able to be seen by all the members working out on the first floor. There began to be this man in his late 30s, early 40s, like I said, I was 22, who would walk by me and stare at me really intensely. I always felt it and turned around and he would be staring at me. After a couple weeks, he came up to me and told me he thought I had a beautiful smile. Sometimes this is nice, but something felt completely off about it. I reported it to my boss. This kept continuing for weeks, and he would come in and smile at me, stare at me while he was working out, and comment on my smile whenever he could. Most nights I didn't work the closing shift because the gym is 24/7 during the week, but one Friday night I worked the close shift for a coworker who couldn't make it in. Towards the end of my shift, around 8 p.m., the member came in. This evening I was feeling particularly tired. He used this as an excuse to talk to me. He stopped me as I was walking by and said,
"Where's the smile today? You look so much prettier when you smile."
As usual, I just kinda carried on. A few minutes later he came up and asked if I had tweezers because he got a sliver in his finger. I looked in our first aid kit, and we did, and I gave them to him. He wasn't able to get it out himself, and so he asked me for my help. I found this weird, but I was one of the only employees left in the building and I felt obliged. So I grabbed his hand with one hand and with the other tweezed out the sliver. Before he carried on, he said,
"I don't think I'll ever wash this hand again."
I'm not kidding, he literally said that. It was so creepy. Then I started to avoid him. He left at 9:35 p.m. I remember because on the way out, he said another comment about my smile and how I must be happier because he likes it more that way. I looked at the time he left because I wondered what I would do if he stood there for a whole 30 minutes until close. My night finished normally and I closed by 10:15 p.m. The gym had a very dark parking lot at night, and we were one of the only buildings still open, so I was anticipating the parking lot to be empty, with the exception of my car. This was not the case. Beside my car was another car with headlights on. There was a trail nearby. Maybe it was people going for a walk. It was strange, though, that the car was parked so close to mine, but I continued to walk forward. As I got closer, I realized it was the member from the gym. This was so weird because, as I said, he left the gym at 9:35 p.m. Did he wait here for me to leave? Why was he parked beside my car? Panic went through my whole body. I felt like I couldn't turn back now and go back inside because he had already seen me. Not sound logic. But I just wanted to drive away, so I continued towards my car. As I was getting in, he held the door and told me that he has never felt for anyone the way I feel for you. And a lot of other weird things I don't remember because I was so creeped out. He then asked me for my number, to which I said no. He asked me why and wouldn't leave me until I gave him an explanation. I continually said I didn't want to, and he kept confessing his love for me, hoping that eventually I would cave. I got in my car, managed to close the door, and started driving, fearful he would follow me. The next day I was working the afternoon shift. At one point, I walked into the studio room and he was in there. I didn't see him come in, so I was really shocked. I turned around to leave and he said, "What, no smile? Wow, okay. You're gonna be like this now? You're gonna get in a mood about it?" I just left. I reported it all to my boss and he was banned from this location of the gym, even though there were 2 other locations in the city that I worked at and he works out at. A year later, I started my membership back up at that gym. I went to work out there only to find him there again. I don't know why he was allowed back. I have never gone back again. Creepy dude from the gym. Let's not meet again. 2. One summer evening, I hung out with my girlfriend for the day at her house. I ended up leaving at around 10 or 11 p.m., so it was quite dark out. Before I drove off, though, my girlfriend hung out with me in my car for a few minutes. My car was an early 90s Dodge or Pontiac sedan. I did not have automatic locks. When my girlfriend stepped out of my car, she did not lock the door again. I drove off, and instead of taking the back road home like I usually did, I decided to take the main road. Since it was late, there weren't many cars out. However, there was a lady standing next to a bus stop. She was pacing around in a circle. I got the sense that she was anxious or nervous about something. When she saw my car, she flagged me down. I pulled over and reached over to roll the window down. No automatic windows either. That's when I noticed the door wasn't locked, and before I could do anything, the lady opened up the passenger door and took a seat. I was surprised by this, but didn't feel like this lady was a threat. She was white, blonde hair, and probably in her late 30s or early 40s. I ask her if she's okay and if she needs help. She tells me that she's just trying to get home, but her phone died, so she couldn't get hold of anyone. She also said she missed the last bus. This sounded plausible to me, and since she didn't seem threatening and she was already in my car, I offered to drive her home. I started driving up the main road and asked her for directions to her place. We drove for maybe 2 minutes when she told me to turn into a residential neighborhood. As we're driving through here, she started talking to me non-stop.
"Thank you so much for stopping. Not everyone's as nice as you. You're real cute, you know that? Your car is super awesome, too."
I replied with a weak, yeah, thanks. She went on.
"It's so nice to find someone who's so trusting this late at night. I like trusting people."
At that point, we came to a stop sign, so I looked left and then right. When I turned to the right, she gave me a creepy smile, like ear-to-ear Joker-type smile. I also noticed for the first time that her pupils were very dilated and darting around all over the place. At this point, I finally started to realize that picking up a strange woman late at night who may be on drugs, perhaps, was not the best idea. I started to think of ways to get her out of the car, but I also didn't want to be rude. I know, I was young and dumb. Before I could think of anything, though, she asks me for my phone so she could give her friend a call and let them know she was coming home. I sheepishly lied to her and said I didn't have a phone. I was then struck with the feeling of dread because my phone's ringer was set to loud, and any notification or message would reveal my lie. Just my luck, a moment later someone texted me and my phone went off.
"I thought you didn't have a phone."
"Oh, I forgot that I had it. I thought I left it at home."
"I don't appreciate being lied to."
She trailed off as if she had more to say. I started to get really nervous at this point. We were deep in this neighborhood, but it was really dark. I decided to get this lady out now. She then points at the road and tells me to take a right at the next stop sign. The road curved a bit, so from where I was, I could see that there was a dead-end sign. For whatever reason, the thought of turning into this dead-end street terrified me. I then had an idea. Right before we got to the stop sign, I pulled over and told the lady that my car was making a funny noise and the temperature gauge was slowly going up. I turned off my car and popped my trunk. I told her that I was grabbing a flashlight from the trunk and if she could step out and hold the light for me while I looked at the engine. I got out of the car. I looked back at her and she looked both mad and annoyed, but she also stepped out. I went to my trunk and rummaged through the things I had there for a few seconds. My flashlight was right in front of me, but I needed to be sure that she was standing in front of the car. Once she was there, I closed my trunk and started walking to the front of the car with my flashlight. My heart was pounding, but I knew I had to keep my voice steady. I gave her the flashlight and then said something like, "Oops, I forgot to pop open the hood. Let me do that real quick." I got back in my car, and I did pop my hood. At the same time, though, I turned the car back on and threw it into reverse. The lady just stood there, staring at me. Once I had enough distance, I put the car back in drive and drove straight past her. She was standing near a streetlight, so I got one last good look at her. I noticed she was holding a knife of some sort in her hand. There was also a large man that stepped out of the shadows and stood next to her. At first, I thought she might be getting attacked, but then they walked away together. I know that this was 100% my fault. It was stupid of me to let her get in my car, and even stupider for me to agree to drive her home. I don't know why she didn't try to attack me earlier. I don't know if they were looking to simply carjack me or do something else. Despite fully accepting the blame, middle-aged blonde lady, let's not meet again. 3. This is the scariest thing that has ever happened to me, and what makes it worse is that had things gone down differently, I might not have been here to tell this story. Okay, first things first, I'm a girl about 5'7" and around 130 pounds. This happened to me about 3 years ago, when I was in my early 20s and still a student, living in a very safe area. Growing up, I had loved martial arts, and having grown up in a small rural town, I'd take what I could get. Karate? Fine. Judo? Sure. Kung Fu? Why not? Taekwondo? Sign me up. I loved martial arts, I still do, because they helped me discipline my body and mind, and grow my confidence. It had been a few years since I moved out to my country's capital to study, and I had kind of fallen off the martial arts wagon at that point, with college taking up most of my time. I should also mention that at the time I lived with my younger brother and our cat. We lived on the first floor, the second floor for all my American people, right next to a military camp and a patch of forest which leads to a creek. On our back balcony there was a circular metal ladder that would lead up to our balcony and the kitchen door, which of course we always kept under lock and key. Except for when the cat wanted to go out, we'd unlock the door and he would go down the outdoor metal stairs to find his cat friends and play. I commuted to my college every day by walking 30 minutes to a bus stop, then riding the bus for an hour, and then walking another 10 minutes until I made it to campus. And when it was time to go home, I'd have to do the same thing all over again, so as you can imagine, it was very tiring. I'd be out of the house every day from 10 in the morning until almost 10 at night, so when I'd come home I'd be knackered. I don't believe in premonitions much, but I do believe in instinct. And for quite a while I felt like something was up with that patch of forest behind our apartment. I felt watched. Maybe it was the blackness of that patch of forest that made me feel uneasy, because there wasn't a single light there, and the outdoor ladder looked like it descended into an abyss. You could take 3 steps into that patch of forest and you'd be under complete cover of darkness. It made me feel weird because even though I couldn't see anything, I knew that something was up. I had no proof, but I knew it. I was in class one Wednesday afternoon with my best friend at the time, and a professor came in to pitch an internship to us. Internships aren't very well known in my country, so professors actually have to argue their case about why, as students, we could benefit from this. My best friend, Kay, was very interested, but when the professor listed off the requirements, she realized she couldn't apply, as her GPA wasn't high enough. This led to Kay having a crying fit after the class was over, which led to a panic attack, and it got so bad that she called her boyfriend to come pick her up from campus. And since I didn't want to leave her alone, I stayed with her until her boyfriend showed up and got in his car with her. The conversation in the car was basically me and her boyfriend trying to console her and help cheer her up. I asked her if she'd like me to go over to her place so we could all hang, but she said she was okay and she didn't want to put me through the hassle of commuting home the next day. She lives a full hour away by car, so 2 hours away by public transport. So it was decided that they would drop me off at my house and they'd go to theirs. We got to my house around 7 p.m., a full 3 hours before I normally come home. I hug her. I tell her to text me if she needs anything. I thank her boyfriend and get out of the car, glad that I'll be home early for a change. I went through the main entrance, climbed up the stairs to the first floor, and put my key in the lock. I opened the door and called out my brother's name like I always did and got no response. The house was dark except for one light in the room where the front door opened into, and eerily quiet. But I felt my stomach tie into a knot because even if I couldn't hear anything, I could feel that someone was there. And when my instinct talks, I listen. I turned right into the hallway that leads into our rooms, and I saw my brother's door slam shut hard as soon as I got into the hallway. My brother's room is on the end of the hallway on the left, facing my own room, which is on the right of the hallway. My first thought was that my brother had taken a shower and forgotten to get a towel, so he made a run for it from the bathroom, which is next to my room, in embarrassment. But then I heard muffled whispers coming from his room, sounded hushed and pressing. I had no reason to be afraid, but I was on high alert, because I thought my brother and his friends were planning on jumping out of his room and scaring me, and I wasn't about to let them get the satisfaction. So I inched down the short hallway through the darkness, and before I knock on my brother's door, I take a look at my room. It's a fucking mess. My mattress was off my bed, my clothes and my books were all over the floor, my jewelry box was empty and thrown on my bed. And, in all, it looked like a tornado had gone through there. And the hushed whispers in the next room sounded extremely pressing and anxious now that I was close. Because though I had tried to tiptoe as silently as possible, my steps had been audible. I realized what was happening and I went ballistic. At that moment, I fucking lost it. My fight-or-flight instinct kicked in, and it kicked fight into maximum overdrive. The words danger, thieves, fight hit me like a truck, and I threw my whole weight onto my brother's door, bursting that door down so furiously you'd think it owed me money. I saw no one in the room, but it was also a mess, and I knew what I had heard, so I ran to the balcony door. I ripped the curtain out of my way and went through the open balcony door just in time to catch one of the thieves right after he jumped off the balcony ledge. Looking back on it, he looked like a normal guy, black hair, normal height, athletic build, big earring on his left ear. But at the time, he looked like a monster to me. A vile, putrid, home-invading piece of shit thief monster. I started screaming unintelligible things as I saw him stumble around, obviously having hurt his legs before he got back on his feet and ran away. They were gone. I was safe. But then it hit me. Where the fuck was my laptop? I ran into my room and tore that place apart looking for my laptop. It was gone. I started screaming and crying. The unfairness, the audacity, and the cowardice hit me like a steel toe to the stomach. I screamed and cried like I was in a Grecian tragedy. I am not rich by any means, and neither is my family. I had an old laptop which was probably worth pennies second-hand. But I needed that laptop for my schoolwork, and without it, I couldn't finish my semester. Not to mention that I don't have many real-life friends, and the majority of my friends at the time were online. So if I lost that laptop, I lost them too. My laptop was lost, and so was I. I felt violated, dirty, less than. I was afraid I'd throw up or pass out or both. I was taking such rapid and deep panic breaths that my vision began to blur. In the most panicked and grief-stricken state I've ever been in my life. Tears streaming down my face. I called my mother to tell her what had happened, and she told me to call the police. It took me almost a full minute on the phone with the operator, telling her again and again where I lived, who I was, and what had happened before she understood me, and said she'd send someone over. A few days later, I was talking with my mother about the incident, and she told me something that hit me hard. I come from a pretty much trilingual household, and she told me that when I called her that night she couldn't make out what language I was speaking because I'd been so panicked. Makes sense why I had to repeat myself over and over to the operator. I started running around the house like a lunatic, checking every door, every lock in a frenzy, until I got to the kitchen and saw that the window had been broken. Without thinking, I slammed it shut. Stupid, I know. But I was beside myself. I wasn't thinking straight. My brother came home a few minutes later, and when he came in, he saw me panicked, crying my eyes out, and speaking almost unintelligibly. He came to the bedrooms, and he saw the damage, and he told me to go sit in the living room and calm down. I did as he said, and tried to calm down, but I jumped at every sound, and started crying worse, telling him I was sorry that I got home too late, and that our laptops were gone. The house seemed so big to me at those moments, so dark and so hostile, and I felt so small and helpless. My brother called me over to my room and showed me a pillowcase full of something. And when we looked inside, we found both laptops, all my jewelry, fake, all of it, my old phone, and some other stuff. They had been right in front of me the whole time, but I was so messed up that they didn't even register. The police eventually came about an hour later and did fuck all. So my brother and I took it to the police station and filed a report of the incident. And since I had seen half of one of the culprits' faces, they asked me to come in for an identification. They even sent someone over to dust for prints. Nothing ever came of it. The police said that they didn't even have a backpack to put the loot in, and resorted to using one of our pillowcases. They were almost 100% junkies. We had the outdoor metallic ladder ripped off our kitchen balcony, much to my cat's displeasure, since that's how they got in. We also installed several motion-detecting lights. For the next few months, I was constantly on edge, and every time I passed near some suspicious characters who hang around near my usual bus stop, I felt a violent rage boil in me. I caught myself looking for the man I had seen, ready to beat him within an inch of his life. But I never saw him, or heard his creepy whisper partner again, and my brother and I moved away from that apartment a few months later because I never felt comfortable in that apartment again. I picked up kickboxing, and because it has made me stronger, it has helped me feel safer. And I also always carry a knife with me now. I still think back on that encounter and realize how stupid I was. What creeps me out the most is knowing that night there had been nothing but a thin plywood door separating me from two potentially dangerous men. Even if I know that me busting in my brother's room like a lunatic is what scared them off, because of how stupidly fearless I was, I also realize how bad it could have gone. They could have had guns, they could have had knives, they could have had pepper spray or a chain or whatever. And there were two of them and only one of me. And if they ganged up on me, even with the adrenaline having turned me into Doom Guy, I don't know how much of a chance I realistically stood against two men, high in whatever they were on, and desperate enough to break into an apartment and stuff loot into a pillowcase. Had they been willing to put up a fight, this would have ended very, very bad for me. What I do know is that I probably still would have bust in there like Doom Guy. So to the creepy, cowardly bastards who dared break into my apartment and try to rob me and my brother, and ended up traumatizing me so bad I had to move, fuck you both. I hope for your sake we never meet again, because I've been kicking that sandbag for 2 years now, and picturing your face every single time. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 3 True Scary Stories, episode 498. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Now, I know some people will be wondering, am I doing anything special for episode 500? No. I'm just going to do a regular old video for episode 500. I might have a celebratory cake afterwards, but I think the best thing I can do to celebrate these videos, for the most part, is just do a regular video. Now, that's probably the best way to do it. Because it's 3 True Scary Stories, unless I changed the format and started doing like 5 or 6, well then it would be a completely different series, wouldn't it? Ah, well. Okay. And with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.